back to another episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, your podcast for the growth, grit, and going beyond the surface. I'm your host, Avik, and today's episode, it's about the edges. Yes, not the kind that cut, but the kind that carve us into who we are meant to become. That's amazing, right? So, we are diving into a conversation that's equal parts psychological, practical, and profoundly personal. Like, why going out to your edges consistently is so important, and how actually to do that. That is also most important, right, dear listeners? So, joining us is someone who's lived this truth from the stage of to the startup world. So, Michael Cinquino. So, welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me. And I feel like I have to record that intro and use it for my own podcast because it was such a great way to lead into the subject matter, I feel.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. And so, dear listeners, before we do that, before we delve deep into this topic, I'd love to introduce you with Michael. So, Michael is a business communication professor, a founder, a creative director, and a student of applied psychology. Yes. So he has spent the last 20 plus years helping thought leaders drop the act and communicate like they mean it. Yes. So through Soho Creative Studio and the Performance Age podcast, Michael empowers people to show up with the truth, clarity, and the presence. So, whether he's coaching a Fortune 500 founder or just guiding a student at the Northwestern, Michael lives by one bold idea. Can you guess what's that? Yes, it's what's the most personal is most universal. That's amazing. I love this line. Yeah. So, get ready, dear listeners, to go deep and maybe even hit an edge or two of your own. So, Michael, welcome to the show again, and it's really, really an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Amazing, amazing. So, Michael, I really love that quote. You talk a lot about going to the edge. So,
Mm.
in business and relationships and the personal growth and all. So, Uh, I mean, if you can define it, like how does it actually mean to live at your age? I mean, if you can share.
Well, I'll tell you, I have to mention this quote first. And to answer your question directly, this idea of going out to the edge has been something that has been a part of my growth, as you mentioned, for a really long time, but I've never really been able to put it into words until a
Mhm.
couple of years ago. My acting teacher, Kelly Kimball, she's no longer with us, but she was my acting teacher in New York City. And I had a very difficult scene in class. It was very good, but it was horrifying. It was so revealing. It felt so personal. And this was an improvised scene, so it wasn't a scripted scene. And it was between myself and another actor. Grace was her name, and we're actually very close friends. And it was so intimate and so at the edge of our comfort zones that we were both kind of horrified. And I had messaged Kelly after the scene and also Grace because I was kind my head was spinning. And Kelly had sent me a message. And this was the message, and I'd love to share it with your audience because it was so poignant for me, and it really helped me understand why this is important and what it is. And then we can certainly dive a little bit deeper on it. But the quote is this: "The place to go is out on the edge and survive it. And then breathe in the thrill that you gave and felt and expressed in front of people who were moved by you and you by them. And then we grow. Then we are bigger. We are more capable of tolerating all that can be asked of us as human beings."
Mm.
That's where it comes from. And this idea of increasing our capabilities by going out to the edge, for me, resonates really in any aspect of life because if we stay comfortable, then we essentially stay in the same place. So there's all kinds of different edges, right? Psychological, physical, emotional, spiritual. But I do think it's a responsibility of us human beings to explore those edges, to walk to them and try to go a little bit beyond them and a little bit further, as the years go on. But this is really where this idea was born for me, and it was Kelly who put these words in this concept in such an eloquent way.
Mm. Understood. Understood. That's amazing. Thank you for so much for sharing that. And um, also, like, how do you know that you are there? I mean, uh, not just stuck in discomfort or the overwhelm.
Yeah. So how do you know if you're at the edge?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a really good point. You can be
Mm.
stuck in discomfort, but I would say
Yes.
if you're comfortable, you're definitely not there. So that's one thing. And I would also say that um there are three modes, I believe, of being human. We can do nothing or let go, which is one mode. We can take action, which is another mode. And then the third mode is to do both of those things at the same time. That is, you're
Mm.
taking action while letting go. So to your point, Avik,
Yeah.
the way that you make that distinction is, are you in some sort of action? Are you doing something? Are
Mm.
you communicating? Are you physically in an act? Are you in an emotional act?
Mm.
And I think it's through action, whether that is literally physical action, you're on a run or walking or hiking, something like that, or you're communicating with someone. But the edge really can only be found in action. And a lot of my work relates to acting because it's where I got a lot of my training. And
Mm.
I always like to say on a movie set, it's lights, camera, then action. It's not lights, camera, hold on a second, lights, camera, think about it, lights, camera,
Mm.
pause, lights, camera, be intellectual. No, it's lights, camera, go. And you as the actor have to go, whether you're emotionally ready or not, spiritually ready. You've hopefully done your work. You want to get there as close as you can. But really, there is something to be said about going. So to answer your question, you'll know there's two elements that have to be in place. One, there's some level of discomfort. Two, you are in the act of something.
Mm. True. Exactly. So, like, yeah, I mean, that concept actually immediately resonates with me. I think um, of the age as the place just beyond where we feel safe, uh, but also where real life begins as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's such a great way to put it. It's the place just beyond where we feel safe,
Mm.
just a little bit beyond that. Now, uh, another part of this is that whatever space you're in, you have to feel safe to go out to the edge. Kelly, my acting teacher in that acting class, it was a safe place. I don't like to say safe space. I like to say brave space. It's a brave space where we were encouraged and supported in going a little past that comfort zone, as you were talking about.
Exactly, exactly. So, you have also caused high performers to stop performing and start showing up. That's scary sometimes, I believe. Like, what's the psychological shift needed to move from polished perfection or perfectionism to a raw presence? So, what do you say?
I love this. So, this is
Mm.
something that I teach my students and I teach in communication seminars. And to be a great, I can talk through it in terms of communication, which is probably something most folks can relate to. So there's three things that are in place when you're communicating. Predictable structure, so to have some sort of easy to follow structure. To answer your question, it's an
Mm.
unpredictable delivery. So you know what you're doing, but you let go of how you think this thing should pass, should come to pass. So, in the acting world, I know my lines, you know your lines, but we don't know exactly how we're going to say those lines in the moment. So the way that you get there is to leave how you're going to say it to chance. And the idea of being performative versus in the moment, in a way, like to say dropping the act,
Mm.
it's really letting go of how you think you're going to say this. And when I coach my founders, and I just had a week last week when I was coaching four founders for their investor pitches. They knew exactly what they were going to say. There was a structure to their presentations. Each
Mm.
slide had its own purpose. But when it comes to how they're going to deliver that information in the moment,
Yeah.
you have to let go of the idea of how that's going to go. Otherwise, it remains
Mm.
performative and you're not really alive in the moment. And therefore, it's not really compelling because I like to say that you have to give folks a reason to be there with you synchronously. If you're going to be performative and you're not going to leave a little bit of edge, a little bit of give, well, then you can just send me an email, right? Just if it's just
Mm,
information, you can send me an email. So we don't have to be there in synchronicity together. And I feel like
yeah.
when we're in synchronicity, we have to
Mm,
earn the right to be there, and that right comes from letting there be a little bit of, I don't know where this is going to go.
mm, true. Amazing. And wow. So why do you think we are so addicted to the performance in the first place?
Because it's safe. Because us human beings like certainty, and
Mhm.
we all have our tolerances for uncertainty and uncomfortabilities in different areas of our lives. You are a one in, however many people are on Earth, 1 in 8 billion, right? You're
Mm,
1 in 8 billion. I'm 1 in 8 billion. We're all different. And it's all relevant to our own context. But I think generally speaking, the reason why we're so addicted to it is because we're afraid of being seen. We're afraid of being humiliated. We're afraid of looking bad. We have to let go of some control about what our image is when we do this. And I understand how this could be jarring. And the thing is, when and going out to the edge, I'll share another quote from Kelly. She would
mhm,
say to us about this work, she says, "You don't get to inject yourself with courage if you do this work in isolation." And I like to say, as an actor, I'm really good in my living room alone. Like, I'm brilliant in my living room. It's when I get on set and there's 100 people there and two cameras and all this stuff, that's when I get thrown. So
mm,
for me, I think a really important part about this work is that you really have to be amongst other human beings to do this work most effectively. It just doesn't happen in isolation. And to your earlier question, Avik, I think it's around the risk of humiliation is present when we're amongst other people. The risk of humiliation is not present when we're alone and in isolation. I think for that reason, I feel like that's one of the major driving factors of why we want to hang on to what's performative and what's predictable rather than what's a little edgy and unpredictable.
mm, true. Exactly. Lovely. And what would you say to someone who's never really tested their age? Like someone who's been playing it, say, for a long time.
I would say find a space and a place and some human beings to where you feel safe and you can explore your edges and go a little bit beyond what feels safe for you. And the question, I guess, is how do you know? Well, it's not a checklist, unfortunately, or not. I think not something you can measure empirically, but you'll know when you feel safe around someone. Maybe it's try something you've never done before. Maybe if you don't love public speaking, walk towards that. I would say wherever walk in the direction gently of whatever you fear, whatever that might be. And I would say take some action, take some steps in that direction. Edges are different for everybody. Comfortability is different for everybody. What we need to challenge ourselves with is different for everybody. But I think the first step is identifying what's a little uncomfortable for you or what could be uncomfortable and taking some real actionable steps to move in that direction and ease into it. And if you're afraid of heights, you don't need to go skydiving tomorrow.
And,
But but what or you can if you want to take that
mm,
big risk. But we know ourselves best, and I would say moving towards uncomfortability, and I think we all know inside of ourselves what that is. I think that's a steps in the right direction, if you will.
yeah, exactly. And is there a first step when you are talking about steps? So, is there a first step that feels bold but still doable?
A first step,
Yeah, yeah.
I guess you could ask yourself, in what situations or around what people am I a little
Mhm.
uncomfortable?
Uh-huh.
Where is uncomfortability for me? What situations, people, or places or things make
Mhm.
me uncomfortable, and walking in that direction.
Okay. Hmm. That's cool. That's really cool. And I mean, I love that because how you bring it down to the earth. So we don't always need a leap. Actually, sometimes the um what to say. Sometimes edge is just asking hard questions or speaking the truth. So,
That's such a great point. No, Avik, I really love that point. It doesn't necessarily mean, running the marathon. It really, finding the edge can really be, I think you put it so beautifully here. They're really just sometimes just asking a difficult question of yourself or of someone else, that itself can be an edge. And I think that's a really wonderful place that someone can start. And I appreciate you offering that distinction. I think it's fantastic.
uh, thank you, thank you. And like uh what to say, your new book, you got a new book coming out, which is Drop the Act.
Yeah.
uh, I personally love that title. And so if people uh, uh did just one thing from that philosophy, that one habit, or maybe you can say mindset shift, what would create the biggest ripple effect in their lives? What do you say on this?
Ooh, this is such a great question. What would create the best ripple effect if they did just one thing from that?
Mm.
Oof. Um, I'm gonna take a second with this one because this is important. Um, I would say
Mhm.
act before you're ready to act. Act before you're comfortable acting. And I think
Mhm.
that probably if there was just one takeaway,
Mhm.
it's that. You don't have to feel it and then do it. Going back to that analogy, lights,
Mm.
camera, action. And I think and as an actor, I've been through so many iterations and so many different kinds of training with just wonderful teachers. And I remember this gentleman, Earl Gister was his name. He was from
Mhm.
Yale University. He was
Mhm.
taught people like Angela Bassett and Sigourney Weaver and Liev Schreiber how to act. I mean, this guy was a legend. And we were Meisner trained actors at Rutgers. So for folks that aren't familiar with these terms, Meisner believed that an actor should behave truthfully in the imaginary. That is, you set up some imaginary circumstances, and then you behave as if this is true.
Yeah.
So Earl came in and he had a different method of acting. And whenever he would ask us what was going on in a scene, we would go into our circumstances and we would just get, oh, well, we would say like, okay, we're married and, I don't trust her.
Yeah.
And he would stomp his foot on the floor and he would say, I don't care. He said, how are you trying to make this person feel in the moment right
Mm.
now? And that's when I realized that acting was about action and you could do it at any time and you didn't need to feel anything. You could act first and the feeling would come. So this is a roundabout way of saying, and a little bit longer answer to your very short question. Act, act first before you're ready. And I have observed in myself and in others, that is probably one of the more determining factors of whether you're going to move in the direction that you want,
Mm.
especially acting when it's not comfortable to act and to be able to do that as a human being. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. Thank you so much for explaining this so well. I mean, I believe that this definitely clears up, and it's a clear-cut discussion, I would say. And it also reminds me that when we stop performing, we start participating. I mean,
Mm.
at least I believe definitely. And um, yeah, you're saying something. Yeah, I love to ask you this. Yeah, please say something.
No, that's incredible. Yes, are you participating or are you performing? And I think there's a difference. And one of the things I'm coming to here, and I love fresh ideas.
Mm.
One of the things that you're reminding me of, Avik, is to have is to be able to ask questions. And what you just
Yes.
brought up right there is like participate, get
Mm.
involved. And if you're performing, you're really not fully participating.
Mm.
If you're participating, it's hard to perform, right? I like to say
Yeah.
play. Like another word for participation is play. I believe we're our truest selves when we're at play. So if you're playing full out, it's very difficult. It's almost impossible to perform because you're not concerned with how you look. You're really in it.
Mm.
You're letting go. So thank you so much for that distinction of performance versus participation. And it's just so important for all of us to perform, I believe, uh, in all areas of our life. And I think
Mm.
the more we participate, the more connected we feel. The more connected we feel, I just know overall, the healthier we're going to be as human beings.
Exactly, exactly. I totally agree on this, and because it's not about just the being loud or something. It's all about being real. So
Mm.
that's the most important part. Yeah, great. So Michael, thank you so much. You have actually given us the tools today. It's really really valuable, and I mean, you have given us the permission, like permission to stop shrinking, permission to show up messy, and also to stretch into the edges of who we could be. So that is the awesome thing. Yeah. And for the listeners, I have mentioned, like, to everyone who is listening, or maybe you will be listening, your age isn't just a kind of warning sign, it's kind of invitation, you can say, because what's waiting for you just outside the lines, uh it's a kind of conversation, a decision, or a truth that you haven't said out loud, right? So take that one step today, towards today, and no act, no armor, is only you and you. So if this conversation has moved you, share it with someone that you love. Rate this show and write a review. And also, before we move, I'll quickly ask you, Michael, if someone wants to connect with you, how they can connect.
I'm on Instagram, probably the easiest place to find me. Michael Cinquino, all one word
Okay.
on Instagram. Feel free to hit me up there. I'm also have a larger presence on LinkedIn. If you drop my name into LinkedIn, I'm not that difficult to find, and I would love to hear from you.
Perfect. Perfect. Lovely. So, as always, dear listeners, stay bold, stay kind, and remember that a healthy mind leads to a powerful life. So, see you next time. Thank you so much.